glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Stock up 49ers after the game versus the Cleveland Browns. And we've continued to see players kind of elevate their game. And you have to. If you're going to have players like Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and Yetur Gross-Matos, and I know Gross-Matos is not kind of in that level, but guys like that continue to be out, you're going to have other guys produce. And for the 49ers, it feels like every single week, somebody else is producing well. And it's not just individual players, but it's complete units. The 49ers special teams had by far one of their most productive days that they've had against the Cleveland Browns. And it wasn't a Cleveland Browns special teams that is normally bad. They're actually pretty good. But the 49ers special teams under Brant Boyer has been phenomenal. The special teams wasn't the only unit that was getting it done. The defense was doing things as well, generating turnovers again, as the 49ers have been on a turnover spree over the last few weeks, usually with interceptions, but this time, ball on the ground when it came to fumbles. 49ers generating opportunities for short fields. Special teams defense rolling in the last two games. And the 49ers offense this time against Cleveland didn't get left behind. They were able to compete. They were able to make things happen. And they had key performers that stepped up in the biggest of moments and made plays when they had to. And now the 49ers are going into the bye week, a much needed bye week. This is the latest that I can remember the 49ers having a bye week in a long time. Now with it, it comes at the right time because you have key veterans that need to get their feet up. They need to get some rest. They need to prepare for the stretch run. But that's what's great about it. You have an opportunity to prepare for the stretch run. And what is the stretch run? Well, it starts with the Tennessee Titans coming out of the bye week. Then it goes to Monday night against the Indianapolis Colts. Then Monday night against the number one seed. Now, will they be the number one seed by the time the 49ers get to that Monday night game? I don't know. The number one seed, Chicago Bears, leaders of the NFC North, in that Sunday night showdown. And then you close it out in a big pivotal game against the Seattle Seahawks that could be for all the marbles. That's right. It could be for everything in the NFC. And normally you could say that's hyperbole, but it's not, because with a couple of games going the right way after the Rams lost to the Panthers, the 49ers versus Seattle Seahawks game, the 49ers take care of business against Tennessee, Indianapolis, and Chicago. And that's a lot of ifs. But if they do, that game could line up to the winner not only wins the NFC West, but wins the NFC for home field advantage. That's right. The 49ers are right in the mix. They are tied in the loss column with the Philadelphia Eagles. They are one game back in the loss column of the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears. And they still play two of those three teams in the next few weeks. They play Seattle. They play Chicago. They control their own destiny. They just need the Rams to lose either to the Cardinals, the Lions, the Seahawks, or the Cardinals. It's not out of the question that could happen. Lions are going to be fighting for their playoff hopes. Seattle's going to be fighting for their playoffs hopes and seeding in the playoffs. It's going to be very interesting. We're going to come down to the stretch, but they're going to need key performances. They're going to need guys that can continue to play stock up and make up for some of the guys that they've lost. And so that's what I want to do. I want to shine the light on some of the players that played really well against the Browns and what that means for the future. I think it's going to be extremely important, and it's a new cast of characters every week, it feels like. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating if you feel that I deserve it. And of course, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. So I want to start on special teams. And usually when you start anything with special teams, it's usually a negative. However, since Brant Boyer has come to San Francisco, this special teams has continued to get better. It didn't start out perfect. It was a little rocky as the season got going. But since then, they made a change at kicker, which meant the whole battery, the whole operation when it came to kicking was better, right? Your long snapper, John Weeks, solid. Your holder, your punter, Thomas Morstead, solid. He's been good. And then you brought in Eddie Pinheiro, and things could have went south when Eddie Pinheiro got hurt. But then you go out and Brant Boyer, he chooses the right guy out of the tryout, and he gets Matt Gay, and Matt Gay hasn't missed a kick yet. Made it interesting, but he hasn't missed yet. Up off the uprights and through, hey, we'll take it. But what has been on the biggest display has to be the return game for the 49ers. And with the new dynamic kickoff, the return game has got to be a pivotal part of a football team's success because it changes field position. Field position is entirely important when it comes to success of an offense, right? If you start at the 35 or beyond, you have a better chance of scoring at least a field goal. If you get out to the 40, your chances of getting a field goal go up exponentially. If you get to the 50-yard line, you're more than likely going to end up with a touchdown. Like, there are certain categories that having good field position play into that. The 49ers have had a lackluster return game for a while. And it started out that way again. But Brant Boyer was willing to make some changes. He was willing to pull Isaac Rendo off and put Brian Robinson in. And Brian Robinson's had a couple really good returns for this 49ers return team. But the biggest move could have been when they decided they didn't have enough in the return game. Jacob Cowing was going to be out. They weren't going to go with one of the young guys. They weren't getting enough from everybody. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go trade for Sky Moore. And when they made that move, they put an emphasis on special teams, which they had already done. Signing Saran Neal, signing Luke Gifford. Those were also special teams moves for the San Francisco 49ers. But Sky Moore was a huge one. And now Sky Moore is paying dividends for this 49ers football team. The last two games especially. The kickoff return against the Carolina Panthers for 98 yards put the 49ers in prime position to start that game off with a touchdown, which they did. Christian McCaffrey, 2-yard run on the very first play on offense, and the 49ers are up 7-0. The momentum that gets for your football team cannot be ignored. It's an absolutely huge play. And what's been great about it is Sky Moore has not stopped. It doesn't matter if it's in the kick return game, which he had another one, he got out to midfield, or if it's in the punt return game like it was in this one. Sky Moore has been this close to taking one to the house for a touchdown. And he almost did it again. A 66-yard kickoff return against the Cleveland Browns. And why was it so pivotal? Well, it's so pivotal for Sky Moore because the 49ers need that help from the kick return team. They need those guys that are going to be able to make plays that are going to change the momentum of a game. And the 49ers went and had to punt to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns get stopped. They're about to punt it back. And it's one of those things where you need a spark. You need somebody to make something happen. And Sky Moore is that guy that makes something happen. And how about this? That 66-yard punt return is the longest punt return by a 49ers player since Ted Ginn returned a punt 78 yards for a touchdown against St. Louis December 26th, 2010. That's right. This is the longest punt return in 15 years. That's how significant Sky Moore's play has been. He has been fantastic over the last couple weeks, and he has set the 49ers up for success. It is huge stock up for Sky Moore, and it doesn't even matter if Sky Moore helps the 49ers on offense. This is why when people ask me every single week, why isn't Jordan Watkins going to be available? Why is he inactive? This is why. You're not removing Sky Moore from the active roster when he can change the game like this. And this is exactly why you want Sky Moore on your team. When you have a returner that is this good, he has to have a roster spot. He influences the game. And so this is huge and pivotal. And I get it. We all want to see Jordan Watkins, but make no mistake, the 49ers' top 4 receivers are the best top 4 receivers, and Sky Moore is the 5th guy. And he is doing a dynamic job in return game. He has solidified this return game. The 49ers have one of the top return games in the entire NFL now, with Sky Moore and Brian Robinson handling kick return, with Brant Boyer at the helm. Sky is the limit, and that's not a pun. That is the truth. Sky is the limit for the 49ers special teams because of the consistency of players like John Weeks, of Thomas Morstead, of Eddie Pinheiro, and I know he's out, but he's going to be back here pretty soon. And guys like Luke Gifford, Saran Neal, Luke Farrell, guys who are making impact plays, but none bigger on the special team side than Sky Moore. He has been absolutely phenomenal. Stock up, Sky Moore, stock up special teams. Now, another guy that's stock up that I want to talk about in a second is a guy that has been with the 49ers before and was on a practice squad, and now he's back. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. FanDuel is going to have the capabilities of you betting on the game tonight. 49ers don't have a game this week, so we're looking at other games. And we're looking at the New York Giants versus New England Patriots. Patriots are favored at home at 7.5. Jackson Dart is back, so that's going to be interesting. The over-under is 46.5. The money line minus 370 for the New England Patriots right now. So if you're going to bet with FanDuel. But I want to talk about Clelin Ferrell. Because Clelin Ferrell, when he went to the Washington Commanders, I don't think the 49ers realized in that moment how big of a loss that was going to be. They were investing in some other players, and it was understandable. But in 2023, when Clelin Ferrell was a member of the San Francisco 49ers football team, he was very consistent as the base down defensive end. He played really well against the run. He was able to generate 3.5 sacks. He was a solid player. And he got hurt at the end of the season. They had to put him on season-ending IR. And he wasn't able to play through the playoff run. He wasn't able to play in the Super Bowl. And you could see the effects of it. Teams were able to get outside of the 49ers, run around Chase Young a little bit. Chase Young was more built for a pass rush role, right? He could be a designated pass rusher, come in for Ferrell. They could move Ferrell inside. And I think that was kind of lost in the shuffle. And then in 2024, they got Sam Okuwanu, and Okuwanu was kind of doing the same things. And the 49ers went back to the role this year of having designated pass rushers like Bryce Huff, moving guys inside like Mikael Williams. And Clelin Ferrell was out there floating around, looking for an opportunity. He went to Washington last year. He had 3.5 sacks. Consistency. He ends up on the Chargers practice squad, and he eventually gets released. When that happened, the 49ers were definitely in the mix for adding a defensive end. Now, Keon White, they added through trade, but adding a guy that could help. And they get Clelin Ferrell to come in on the practice squad. And this is so huge because not only does Clelin Ferrell get elevated right away, he starts producing right away. Clelin Ferrell had 2 sacks in this game against the Cleveland Browns. And we all know by now that I thought the 49ers were going to get sacks in this game. I thought that Shedeur Sanders was going to give some opportunities. I felt like Robert Saleh was going to do some things to make things difficult for Shedeur and reads, to make him hold the ball, but also, some blitzes, some stunts, some things up front to confuse him a little bit, and they were going to get an opportunity. But Clelin Ferrell now has 4 sacks on the season. He had 1 in his first game. He had 1 last week, and he had 2 this week. Right? I think that's it. I think I have it wrong with when he got the second one. But he has been just a consistent player. And the fact that he's able to generate pass rush has been phenomenal for the 49ers. So Clelin Ferrell is going to be a pivotal piece to this 49ers roster down the stretch. You need pass rush. This is part of the reason in my opening monologue that I brought up Yetur Gross-Matos, because when Gross-Matos went out, the 49ers lost an interior pass presence. Then they brought in Keon White through trade, and it's like, okay, they've got an interior pass presence again, but Mikael Williams is hurt. So you lost that second one again. Well, what Clelin Ferrell is starting to do is generate pass rush off the outside. This is the first time we've seen him with a lot of snaps off the outside, without Sam Okuwanu there. So the 49ers have an opportunity now to generate consistent pass rush opposite of Bryce Huff. What does that mean? What that means is people are going to have to decide, do we want to turn our attention away from Bryce Huff? Do we want to make this thing more balanced, give a little bit more attention to Clelin Ferrell? Then you get some one-on-ones for Bryce Huff. You see where I'm going here. It provides some opportunity. So that's exactly what I love about Clelin Ferrell. He has been a huge pickup. This wasn't a trade, right? This wasn't a big free agent signing. This was getting a player that you felt familiar with, that understand your system, off the street, plugging him in, and letting him go to work. And it just fits. It works. Sometimes you get guys that just fit your system. And Clelin Ferrell does fit this system. But not just that. He's an effort guy. He hustles. He does the dirty work. He tackles well. All you have to do is look at his stats in this game. He is the number one tackler in this football game for the 49ers. Clelin Ferrell had 9 tackles in this game. He had 6 of them as solo tackles. He had 2 sacks in this game. He was getting after it. This is a guy that wasn't good enough to play for any of the teams, right? He was on the practice squad of the Chargers. He was on the 49ers practice squad. They elevated him twice before adding him to the active roster because of injury. Phenomenal. This is exactly what you needed. But he didn't come alone, because at almost the exact same time, the 49ers brought up my next stock up 49er, Keion White. They traded for New England. They got him the week before the trade deadline. And then the trade deadline came and passed, and all 49er fans, me included, were like, man, thought they were going to make another move, thought they were going to do something. And John Lynch was like, hey, we did do something. We got Keion White last week. And the fact that Keion White only had 6 sacks in his career is why we were all, we thought you were going to do something else. But Keion White, now that he's starting to learn this 49ers defense, he's starting to feel comfortable within Chris Kaceric's scheme, where you rush the quarterback and kind of stop the running game along the way, right? You stop the run along the way to the quarterback. He's becoming more and more successful. And one of the things I love the most about him in this game, there's a play that happens out in the flat, and Keion White gets his hands on the running back, and he can't get him to the ground, and D. Winters comes up and just goes for the kill shot and doesn't wrap up and help Keion White, and they get a few extra yards. And you could tell Keion White is upset. And, of course, all of us are upset at D. Winters, like, dude, wrap up, grab cloth, get the guy to the ground. Who cares about the kill shot? Let's not do that. Let's make sure we secure the tackle. Now, what does Keion White do? The very next play, he swims in and he makes a huge stop on Quinshon Judkins a yard behind the line of scrimmage. And it's like, ooh, okay. I like that. I like what I saw on the inside from Keion White. He was making some things happen. And I love the fact that also on his pass rush, they were playing complementary defense. They were working together to create an opportunity to get someone free. And he happened to be the one that got free. And then he closed it out and finished. Just these 2 moves, Clelin Ferrell and Keion White, have generated over 5 sacks in just a short period of time. That is remarkable. The 49ers weren't able to get anything going when it came to pass rush. Outside of Nick Bosa, outside of Bryce Huff, right? It was like 2 weeks ago, Nick Bosa was still the number 2 leader in the 49ers clubhouse as far as sacks with 2. That's not the case anymore. Keion White has a sack and a half. Clelin Ferrell has 4 sacks. These guys are getting after it. The fact that you're getting guys who are generating play and making things happen is hugely beneficial to this defensive line. And how about that? To stock up 49ers on the defensive line. And I could easily go through and talk about CJ West and Alfred Collins and what they're doing. Those guys made some plays in this game as well. The 49ers defense overall playing pretty well. And I want to talk about the defense in a bit. But I want to go to the secondary. And here's why. Malik Mustafa keeps getting better and better. And you wondered if that was going to be the case, right? He's coming back from an injury, got hurt last year. He was rehabbing all during the offseason, rehabbing in training camp. Came back, after, several games this season. And you could tell he looked rusty. He didn't look comfortable. He wasn't playing as the normal Malik Mustafa that we saw down the stretch last year. Well, in this game especially, and I started seeing it a little bit last week, but this week especially, he was flying up and making tackles around the line of scrimmage. And we've seen him come up and fly up and be out of control and miss those tackles this season. Not in this one. He was very pivotal on a big 4th-and-1 stop. The first 4th-and-1 stop the 49ers had. Jordan Elliott with a great swim move starts it out. Malik Mustafa blitzes off his inside hip, and both of those guys get to the running back at the same time. Bada bing, bada boom. 49ers first down. Like, they made a huge play, and it started with those guys. But Malik Mustafa has started looking more like Malik Mustafa from last year. Even some of the plays down the field, it wasn't great coverage that he had in Isaiah Bond, but he was there, and he was able to knock the ball away. Those types of things are going to be hugely pivotal. Jair Brown had a really good game last week against Carolina. Now Malik Mustafa comes into this game, and he has a pretty good game. I thought that he played well. He had 7 tackles, 5 of those solo. He had the tackle for loss. The one I talked about, he had a pass defense. The one to Isaiah Bond down the field. These were huge impact plays in this football game. They need that from Malik Mustafa. They need a player that's going to be an eraser on the back end. That he can come up and he can absolutely hit you over the middle of the field. He can come up and stop you in the line of scrimmage. But if they go deep, he's going to be on them. And I thought that he displayed almost every single element of that in this game. And so it was huge stock up for me for Malik Mustafa. I feel like over the next 4 weeks, he's only going to get better and better and better. And maybe him and Jair Brown are starting to feel really comfortable playing together. They look like they're starting to feel comfortable with their roles. You're starting to see Robert Saleh go with a little bit more left and right safety at times. I think that they're starting to figure this thing out. And a big reason why is they're starting to make tackles. Last week, Jair Brown didn't miss any tackles. This week, Malik Mustafa is flying up and making tackles. This is the kind of safety play the 49ers need on the back end if they're going to be consistent, right? We talked about this for a few weeks. It was about 3 weeks ago. We were talking about they weren't getting consistent safety play from either guy. There wasn't a guy that could do both, that could cover and come up and make plays and tackle well. Now we got 2 safeties that are doing it. That's only going to raise the level of everybody. But he's not the only one in the secondary that I thought was stock up. Upton Stout was also stock up. When did you hear Upton Stout giving up catches in this game? He wasn't. Upton Stout was just making tackles in the run game, making tackles in space, not giving up catches. He was good. Upton Stout is another guy that's getting better and better with the role. And you got to give credit to Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh has simplified what Upton Stout is expected to do. He simplified how many times he's going to be in certain key situations. He's also took away some of those snaps. And it's not against Upton Stout. What he's done is he said, okay, they're going to put bigger body guys. We're going to go with Jason Pinnock. And it has worked out really well for the 49ers going with that Buffalo nickel. And since then, Upton Stout's play, I feel like, is getting better and better. But he also, like Malik Mustafa, had 7 tackles, 5 of them solo, and 1 tackle for loss. That's your nickel corner. Flying around and making plays. Jair Brown is right there, right behind the 2 starting linebackers. He had 5 tackles, 4 of those solo. 49ers secondary making plays for a second straight week. Jason Pinnock had 2 tackles. Renardo Green had 3 tackles. Deommodore Lenoir had 4 tackles. These dudes are coming up, they're getting involved, and they're making plays. And so it's huge stock up. And the thing is with Upton Stout, it was never a question of if, it was a question of when. And Robert Saleh had the great nugget in his presser this week. He's talking about Upton Stout, and he said that Upton Stout texted him the Friday before the Carolina Panthers game and said, hey, and he texted him a look. He said, now, if they were running this look and it wasn't even something they had shown on film, would I do this? And Robert Saleh was like, yes. And Robert Saleh is like, okay, that's him thinking ahead of the game, understanding concepts, reads, looks, and schematics of what a offense could particularly or could look to do against him and being prepared for it. Those are the kind of aha moments for a young player where all of a sudden things start slowing down. Because when you're playing defensive back, and I got to give Richard Sherman credit, he used to say this a lot. When you're playing defensive back, you're not playing against the receiver in front of you. You're playing against the coordinator. And why does he say that? Yes, the receiver's the guy you're covering, but the route concept, what they're going to do schematically, from what formation, what the spacing's going to be, who's going to be there, all that's going to limit what they can run in the route tree. And then the offensive coordinator is going to limit what they run by formation, by personnel, and by alignment. You can cut it down to a certain amount. Then with your intelligence and film study and the fact that you can read the quarterback drop, you can cut it down even more. So eventually, maybe you get it down to, hey, this could be 2 or 3 routes. By narrowing it down, you give yourself a better opportunity to make plays. And that's the intelligence part of Upton Stout. And why is that so pivotal? Well, the nickel, like I talked about last week, has a tough situation where he's got to play the run, like he's a extra linebacker, and he's got to cover a receiver that has way more space. He can go over the middle, or he can go to the sideline because he's lined up inside on the hash. So Upton Stout's intelligence is shining through. Stock up, Upton Stout. And then I want to go offense one more time before I talk about the 49ers defense. Spencer Burford. Ben Bartch got hurt again. Ben Bartch hurt his foot. Now, we'll find out from Kyle Shanahan effectively what that injury is. But he's been rotating with Ben Bartch. Well, when it came time for Spencer Burford to answer the call, he did. And I know he got a holding call. Yes, he gave up some pressures. But the thing is he stabilized that left side of the offensive line. Trent Williams looks more comfortable with Spencer Burford there. Spencer Burford got out in space and created a first down opportunity for Christian McCaffrey on a screen pass. Yeah, is there going to be plays that Spencer Burford struggled against this Cleveland Browns defensive line? Oh, yeah. Get ready for it. It's going to be there. It's going to be there for all the offensive line. But what he did is he's added stability. He's played better than what they had before. And that's what's important. And it's good to see that. It's good to see physicality. It's good to see somebody that's competing, play in and play out. So I wanted to tip my cap to Spencer Burford and what he's been capable of doing and the fact that he stayed healthy now. The 49ers just can't put an investment into Ben Bartch because he can't stay healthy. But Spencer Burford has answered the call. And as long as they have Spencer Burford, I feel confident that they'll be fine. Now, my hope is that Ben Bartch's injury is nothing significant, and they can go right back to rotating. I love the rotation. I think it's been pivotal for both of those players. You know, they play 30 to 35 snaps per game. They split it almost right down the middle, and they're extremely successful doing it. I would love to see that continue. So stock up Spencer Burford for adding stability to the left guard position that has had a lot of injuries so far this season. But lastly, I want to go to the 49ers defense. The 49ers defense has been absolutely fantastic over the last 2 weeks. And you've got to tip your cap to Robert Saleh. And there's no way you could say, stock up Robert Saleh. This dude's stock doesn't get bigger than what he's been able to do. But some of the key things that they were able to do in this game, and I talked about it a little bit on the reaction show, and then I did a recap show over on Patreon. We went live. I did a recap show over there, and I went over this as well. But the 49ers defense held the Browns to 0 red zone trips. 0. Goose egg. It doesn't matter how good you are in the red zone. They're normally a 53% red zone offense. Like, that's pretty good. Even though they're the 32nd ranked offense, they couldn't score in the red zone because they couldn't get there. That's the first time the 49ers have done that since week 5 of the 2023 season against the Dallas Cowboys in October of that season. 2 years ago, that's Steve Wilkes. That's a Super Bowl defense. That's the last time that happened. They also held the Browns to 0 second half points. The first time they've held a team scoreless since 2023, New Year's Eve against the Washington Commanders, where they held them scoreless in the second half. We're talking Super Bowl year, right? We talked about this a lot. You had the Steve Wilkes defense, which was pretty good in 2023. You had the Nick Sorensen defense last year. Now Robert Saleh is starting to get some of those numbers back. And I get it. This was not a great Cleveland Browns offense, but you have to play well against bad teams, and you have to execute against whoever you're playing. And let's not forget, they did it last week against the Carolina Panthers, held them to 9 points last week, and they went off against the Los Angeles Rams and scored over 30. And I know they had a pick 6 and they had some things, but let's just keep it real. 49ers have held 2 straight teams under double-digit points. It's been a phenomenal performance so far. They also allowed 0 conversions on 4th down attempts. The Browns against the Browns offense. That's the which marked the most 4th down attempts without a conversion by an opposing offense against the 49ers since October 13th, 2019, against the Los Angeles Rams, where the 49ers held the Rams 0-4 on 4th down. All the way since Robert Saleh was the coordinator on the first go-around when they were a Super Bowl team. That's how good the defense has been. That's how good Robert Saleh has been. It has been absolutely phenomenal what he's been capable of doing. They also held the Cleveland Browns to a 3 of 11 on 3rd down. They held the Carolina Panthers the week before to 1 of 7. They held them out of the red zone entirely. It's just been such a great performance. And I get it. They gave up 138 yards on the ground. Yes, they did that. You know what they didn't do? They didn't give up a lot of points. They didn't give up any points in the second half. A goose egg. Stock up 49ers defense. Stock up 49ers special teams. Stock up 49ers creating turnovers. How great is this right now? We're going into a bye week. 49ers are feeling really comfortable. They're going to get to rest. We're going to do content all week. We're going to be doing, all the stuff that we normally do. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk a lot of stuff. If you guys have questions, you have things you want me to talk about, leave it in the comment section. Send me an email. Hit me up on Patreon, whatever you want to do, and we'll get to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great time to be a 49er fan. They're in the mix. One thing goes the right way, 49ers could find themselves not just winning the division, but also being the number 1 seed in the entire NFC, which is crazy to say. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.